Welcome to our today's lecture. The unit we are going to handle today is political sociology. The code is BED3207. By names, I'm Gordon Ochola. And before we proceed to our today's lecture, I would want us to have a recap on what we discussed on our previous interaction. That is social movement, which is the topic we discussed last. And in our previous lecture, we defined social movement. We also looked at the typologies of social movements. We also looked at the four stages of social movement life cycle, starting from emergence all the way to decline, going through institutionalization. So we looked at that in our previous lecture. Now today I want us to move to something different, and that is political participation. Now in our previous lecture we had defined what is political sociology, we defined what is politics, of which we said that politics got to do with national governance. And borrowing from that, we are going to move today to discussing about political participation. So political participation is going to be our topic today. And in today's discussion, this is going to be the outline of our lecture. We are going to define what is political participation. We are also going to look at types of political participation. Now, because political participation majorly is instrumented by political party system, we are also going to talk about types of political party systems. Apart from that, having talked about the system, it is also very critical for us to understand what are the key functions of political parties, and also enumerate some benefits of political participation before we conclude. At the end of the lecture, I'll also have time to mention briefly about some of the revision questions that we can have when we are discussing or when we are doing private revisions about this specific topic. So let's start with the definition. What is political participation? Political participation, as the name suggests, it is participation in politics. But from the sociology, from the political sociology angle, political participation can be defined as the citizens' activities affecting politics. And politics here, as we had mentioned in our previous interactions, is got to do with the national or governance approach of a country. So citizens' activities that is affecting politics, in a nutshell, refers to as political participation. But this definition can also be broadened to include other aspects, and here we are talking about a broad range of political activities through which people develop and express their opinion on the world and how it is governed, and try to take part in and shape the decisions that affect their lives. So political participation, yes, it is still political activity, but here we are talking about people expressing their opinion on the world and how it is governed, and try to take part in it and shape the decisions that affect their lives. So political participation is derived from the freedom to speak out, freedom to assemble, and freedom to associate. Now, these are key fundamental human rights that everybody in the world is entitled to, just because they are human beings. Freedom to speak, freedom to assemble, and freedom to associate. So With the enjoyment of this element of freedom, it is from this enjoyment of this element of freedom that political participation emerges. And in this case, political participation brings about ability to take part in the conduct of public affairs. So because you are enjoying your rights to freedom, because you are enjoying your rights to assemble and your rights to associate, therefore you need to have ability to take part in the conduct of public affairs. And political participation provides a platform for this particular achievement. At the same time, through political parties, there are opportunities to register as a candidate, to campaign, to be elected, and to hold an office at all levels of government. So, political parties or political participation allows an individual to be a candidate, to campaign, to be elected, and to hold office at all levels of government. Now, in other words, what the statement is saying is, through political participation, it provides everybody with an opportunity to gain political leadership. Having looked at that, let's move and look at types of political participation. And there are many types or many ways through somebody can participate politically, or citizens can engage in activities involving politics. One of them is through voting. And voting in Kenya here is the process of election where you go and elect your leaders, starting from the president all the way to members of the county assembly, including the women rep, including the senators, including the members of parliament, including the governors, among other elective posts. So voting here allows for the views of more people to be represented than any other activity. Every citizen gets one vote that counts equally. Every citizen gets one vote that counts equally. So the act of voting is a political participation activity. The act of voting is one type of political participation activity. The other way is the campaign activity. If you want to be elected, or if you are campaigning for a candidate to gain a political seat through voting process, then that is a campaign activity which is a political participation. So campaign activity, in addition to voting, people engage in a range of activities during campaign, and they work for political parties or candidates, or organize campaign events, and discuss issues with the family and friends. So what we mean by campaign here is trying to convince other people to vote for a particular candidate. And this can be happening in discussions, can be happening through advertisements, can be happening through discussing with friends about your specific candidates. So if you are engaged in that type of activity, then that is a type of political participation. Another way of another type of political participation is running for or holding a public office. So being elected as a governor, being elected as a president, will require you to dedicate a great deal of time and energy and money. And that is a very active political participation process. The fact that you are running to be elected, to hold a public office, is a type of political participation. The other type of political participation is protest activity. And protest activity can involve unconventional and sometimes unlawful political actions that are undertaken in order to gain a reward for political and economic systems. So if you participate in political protests, either you belong to a political party that is protesting as a way of expressing their grievance, or as a way of a good example is what we had discussed in our previous lecture about social movements. So if you're participating in a social movement activity organized by a political party, then that is also a type of political participation. Another type is political party membership, and membership here is available at election times, and it helps parties reach and mobilize supporters. So belonging to a specific political party, and a political party here, and in most cases they involve subscription, where either you subscribe annually, either you subscribe monthly, because you are a member of a specific political party. So by subscribing, where you give money, that is also an active process of political participation. We also have volunteering, and volunteering here means offering service for free. You can also decide to dedicate your time, dedicate your resources towards political party activity, and in that way it is also an active political participation process. Apart from that, we can also have democratic participation, e.g. stating an act of civil disobedience. Now, civil disobedience here basically means that it is deciding to go against what is expected of you, but without causing any disruption. It can be like sit-ins in the cities, where people go and sit down on the cities because they are expressing their grievance. So political participation can also be demonstrated, or can also be demonstrated by participating in democratic participations. Having looked at the types of political participation, let's look at the political party system. And we'll start by defining a political party. As I've already mentioned, when you talk about political participation, it is political party which is usually the major vehicle for political participation. So political participation uses political party as the tool or as the vehicle for active political participation. Now, political party can be defined as a group of persons organized to acquire and exercise political power. So when people decide to come together and organize themselves in order to acquire power through a democratic process, that is through electoral process, then that is what we call a political party. A political party. So in democratic societies, governance is usually achieved through acquisition of political power, or let me say in Western democracies, governance is usually achieved through acquisition of power through a democratic political process, and political party is a major vehicle for achieving that particular objective. Now in this country, that is Kenya, we have a number of political parties. And these political parties, there are quite a number of them, which are usually formed to acquire political power. At the same time, taking example of the United States, we also have two major political parties, that is the Democrats and the Republican. And as we have mentioned, whichever country you look at it, political parties are a group of persons organized to acquire and exercise political power. At the same time, Political party can also be a group of people who come together to contest elections in order to hold power in the government. So political parties can also mean groups of people who decides to come together to contest to engage in political contestation in order to hold power. And it is a way to mobilize voters to support common sets of interest, concerns, and goals. So in most democratic societies, parties are formed to mobilize voters and to support common interests, concerns, and goals. In other words, this specific point is only possible when political parties are known to stand for specific issues, in the sense that the party is well founded on specific principles. The party is well known for its position on national issues, be it social issues, be it economic issues, be it the cultural issues, among other aspects. So our political party is a way of mobilizing voters to support common sets of interest, concerns, and goals. Having looked at that, let's look at the political party's system. Having defined what is a political party, let's look at the political party systems. We have three political party systems, and that is the one-party system, two-party system, and the multi-party system. In some literature, you'll find some authors saying that defining political parties as only belonging to two systems, that is the one-party system and the multi-party system. But we can also have some cases where we have two-party system, and this two-party system is where power shifts between two major dominant parties. Power shifts between two major dominant parties. But this two-party system can well also fit within, in some cases, can also fit within the multi-party system. But when you talk about the multi-party system, this is where there are three or more parties which have the capacity to gain control of government separately or in a coalition. Now, countries that have one-party system are mostly the communist countries, one of them being China, the other one being North Korea, and those are the examples of countries that have got one-party system. In Kenya here, we also used to have the one-party system until early 1990s, when the constitution was changed and we adopted the multi-party democracy, and that led to formation of several political parties. But in most democracies, you will find that there are several parties in terms of tens, in terms of hundreds, that have ability or capacity to gain control of power through either coalition or separately. So according to Western democracies, or in capitalist societies, you will always find that there are several political parties. Having looked at the political party system, I want us now to move and look at the functions or the key roles of political parties. And political parties, one of its key functions, as I've said, political parties are the major vehicles for political participation. One of the key roles of political party is to contest election by putting up candidates. So political parties sponsor candidates in elections. They sponsor candidates in elections in order to acquire occupy those positions and acquire power. Another function of political party is simplifying choices. And simplifying choices here, it means that the electorates are presented with choices from a myriad of candidates or from several candidates to choose from. But a good example that simplifies this point is comparison between the Republican and the Democrats. These are two major political parties in the United States of America. And these two major political parties, they have well-defined position on social issues and economic policies. So, depending with what resonates well with you as a voter, in terms of what the Republican stands for in relation to social issues and economic policies, or depending with what Democrats stands for in terms of social issues and economic policies, as a voter, you will be presented with simplified choices that you can easily make in order to pick whichever candidate you want, or whichever issue you feel needs to be addressed. Then you pick on the candidate that you feel can address that specific issue to the best as you want it tackled. Another function of the political party is political parties are involved in policy making. For example, they take positions on important policy questions. They take positions in important policy questions. Now, political parties are entities that engage in democratic processes, and in that way, if a law is to be enacted or a policy formation is on the process, a political party, being an entity, organized entity, can have or usually have a platform to give their voice or to give their take or to give their position as far as the policy questions are concerned. E.g., for example, if a country wants to engage in constitutional review process, a government wants to engage in constitutional review process, the input of political parties is usually very critical because they may be having a position that will add value to the whole process, and therefore, in most cases, they are never neglected as far as achieving or as far as performing this specific function of policy making is concerned. Now, within any election process, within any democratic process, there is usually the winner and the loser. And the winner, of course, will form a government. The winner will be in power. The winner will take the seat of power. What about the opposition? The opposition also has a role. And the role of the opposition here is to give different views and criticize the government for their failure. So opposition here is acting as giving checks and balance to the government in power. So the role of the opposition, well-organized opposition, is to act as offering checks and balance to government. And without opposing political party or opposition parties, active opposition parties, then most of the wrongdoings of the government may not be exposed. And as a result of that, it is the citizens or the electorate that may not realize their objective as to why they voted the government. Apart from that, we also have political parties shaping opinions by giving help to pressure groups. So political parties also give help to pressure groups when solving some of the problems facing the society. So political parties, they also voice out or they work in collaboration with some of the pressure groups or civil societies in order to ensure that the issues affecting the society are usually voiced out such that action can be taken. Other functions of political parties is they promote freedom of association that allow people to belong to a political party of choice, which we had mentioned. Political parties also provide an alternative government in situations where the ruling party fails to meet the needs of the people. So in other words, they consider themselves government in waiting if the ruling government fails to do what it had promised the electorates in their manifesto. Apart from that, political parties also educate citizens on national issues and the problems facing the country and the solution to the problem. So political parties also have got the educational role, but this only happens when political parties are well organized. If the political parties are not well organized, if the political parties are not well funded, if the political parties are for small groups of people that only addresses issues affecting a community, or if a political party is community-based, then some of these roles that political parties are supposed to undertake may not be performed well. The other point, which is the last one, is political parties represent groups of interests, and the interest groups here are the constituents. The constituents, if you participate in an election, you are giving mandate to that you are elected official, you are giving mandate to that you are candidate to go and represent your interest. So political parties also represent interest groups. They also represent interest groups as a result of or from the elected leaders. And the interest groups here are the constituents that put the political leaders in power. Having looked at the functions of political parties, let's look at briefly mention about benefits of political participation. But this I tried to summarize because there are several benefits that can be derived from political participation, and this also is also part of our review questions that is coming up next. And one of the key benefits of political participation is improved governance. Political participation also creates greater social cohesion. It creates social cohesion because people are combined, or people share, because of the shared ideology or shared view that brings people together in form of a political party. Then it can create cohesion. It can also lead to improved quality of service, because if we have opposition government or opposition political party that is keeping government under checks and balance, then the government will always strive to ensure that the services are improved. Because if they don't do that, then coming next general election or coming election, then they may lose the power. At the same time, political participation also provides greater capacity building and learning. Now, this comes from the point we mentioned that political parties also engage in citizens' education. So it can also improve capacity building and also provide learning platform. Last but not least, from this lecture, we should be able to explain the role of political parties in a democracy. So I would pose this question: can you explain the role of political parties in a democracy? What do political parties do as far as achievement of democratic governance is concerned? That is a question to ponder. The other question is, can you discuss the pros and cons of youth engagement in political participation? by giving relevant examples. Here, I'm very specific about the youths. Now, youth engagement in political activities has always resulted into several issues, where you'll find that youths are only engaged during campaigns, youths are only being given handouts to engage in political process, to go and vote, or to help in campaigning. But once people have won the seats, the youth's interest is often undermined. So in this question, what I'm asking is, can you enumerate and explain the pros and cons of youth engagement in political participation? And last but not least is, political parties are vehicles for political participation. And it is everybody's right to belong and to participate in political process. But in most cases, you'll find that there is some element of gender discrimination as far as women participation in political women participation in politics is concerned, especially in developing countries that I'm referring here to us here as the global south. So what this question is expecting from you is, is it possible for you, having had this lecture, to enumerate challenges women face in their attempt to actively participate in politics in developing countries? But things are changing now. We have African women presidents. We have women leadership all over the world. But even with that, you'll find that most political seats, most elective political seats, if you compare number of men and women, you'll find that the number of women are fewer. Apart from, in Africa, apart from Rwanda, that has got about 53% of women in people in elective positions in parliament being held by women. In most African countries, you'll find that most political elective positions are held by men. So what the question wants from you is, can you discuss the obstacles? What are these specific challenges? What are these hurdles women have to go through in their attempt to actively engage in political activity? And this is specific to the global south or the developing countries. And from this lecture interaction, if you are able to answer those questions, that will be a very good achievement. Otherwise, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for listening, and until we meet next time. Thank you.
These televised lectures supplement our robust online learning going on our MKU online platform. You can view more on our televised lectures via our online platform. We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.